Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Amityville BOE Mtg Board of Education meeting. Today is February 4th, 2026. I'm calling the meeting to order at 5:42 p.m. In attendance right now is myself, President Lisa Johnson, trustees Carol Seahawk, Leslie Kretz, and Megan Messman. It's anticipated that first Vice President John Leon and second Vice President Chris Steering will be arriving within the next 5 minutes. Also in attendance is our Superintendent, Dr. Jim Talbot, our Assistant Superintendent for Construction, Mary Stevens, our Director of Human Resources, Dr. Landau, and our Interim Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations, Mr. Shannon. At this point in time, at 5:43 p.m., can I have a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of interviewing for candidates for the high school principals and for advice from counsel? John Sheehan will be arriving here roughly about 6:45 for particular persons in the district. Second. Carol Seahawks first. Just Chris second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 4-0. So we do open approximately at 7:30 p.m. Thank you for joining.
8:09. At this point in time, please make sure that your cell phones are silenced and please join the Board of Education in the Pledge of Allegiance. At this point in time, we're going to turn the meeting over to Dr. Talbot.
Thank you, President Johnson. Tonight, we do have a presentation, which is a draft revenue budget. As you know, we are beginning the 26-27 budget planning season. And tonight, our interim assistant superintendent for business and finance, Mr. Richard Snyder, is going to present some estimations for us to consider, review of some tax cap calculations, walk us through some of the controller's fiscal stress numbers, and present some options for the board's consideration. Mr. Snyder.
Good evening. Getting right into it. This is a draft of our revenue budget, which is really the way I start the budgeting process because most of the revenue information comes in first. So it sort of says how much money we have to work with, and we're now generating an expenditure budget, but the revenue really kind of locks us in because that's how much we have to stay with it. So here you have 23-24 actual, 24-25 budget to actual, 25 budget, and then the 26-27 draft. You can see on the local revenue side, we're down, 295,000. Most of that is coming from adjustments from one shots from interfund transfers and adjusting things like premiums on obligations and miscellaneous revenue and Medicaid to just align them more closely to actual costs and be a little more conservative in those estimates. We went through state aid at the last meeting. I will draw your attention to the 25-26 number of 66.9 million. I'll be talking about that on the next slide in terms of how the controller's office use that number with the tax reserve that we have. I'm referring to property taxes to 66.9 million, right? We'll talk about that in a second. Overall, we're at 1.77, which is pretty modest. That's where we are now. It'll change a little bit. I could see it approaching 2% as we go through the budget process. So we looked at this calculation at the last meeting, and I just want you to be aware that the controller's office views our starting budget as 66.5. because they're discounting that 436,000 reserve that was related to the energy performance contract. It was put in our budget in the previous year. So if you look at that 66,964 and go back here, you could see it down in the middle to the right, which is why for our revenue purposes, the increase is 1.5%. But what's going to get published in the newspapers is going to be, 2.23, because they don't view the 436 as part of the base, even though we have that money. So just be aware that the media controller's office, when these numbers get submitted on March 1st, will be saying 2.23. But in actuality, the tax levy is only going up 1.56. So we're going to have to talk about how to communicate that information during the budget process. Some information that was in your last transmittal. This comes from the Controller's Office Fiscal Stress Workbook. As you know, we are no longer on the fiscal stress watch list. To the left is the data that I've been talking about since I joined you. That shows you your fund balance and reserves as a percentage of your expenditures. You can see that we're still considerably lower than all schools in the state, Long Island in general, and comparable medium downstate school districts. I thought the chart to the right was also interesting because it shows our actual cash balances as a percentage of our monthly expenditures. And you can see that while our cash position has improved, we're still not where we need to be in terms of other Long Island districts and comparable downstate districts. So getting into options for the surplus for 24-25, it's just the way I see it. You have three options and you can do this in any combination you want. You can fund the reserves, you can fund capital projects with it, and you can give it back to the taxpayers. You already have the guidance on funding the reserves. That would be a board resolution or policy discussion. And we're gathering information in the budget process on potential capital projects that are likely to be pretty modest and included in the budget. Showing you what giving back to the taxpayers looks like. The point I'm trying to get across here is that when you give money back to the taxpayers, it is a permanent reduction of a reoccurring revenue source. So the top box assumes that we give 1 million back of the tax levy in year one, and you can see how it compounds just at 1.5% over a 5-year period, where after 5 years, that reoccurring revenue source, you've lost $5 million, and that would continue in perpetuity. To give back 10 million, just to show you the extreme, it's just basically following the math. After 5 years, you would be down $51.5 million. The only way you get this money back, should you decide to change courses, to pierce the cap, and that is a very difficult thing to achieve in this day and age. So whatever you decide, my guidance to you is that, remember, you are lowering a reoccurring revenue source and you are lowering it forever. So every year, if you gave back 1 million, you're giving it back in a compound. If you're looking for additional opinions to deliberate on, we have vendors that also specialize in this. You have Capital Markets, which helps us with our bonds and TAN borrowings. You have Bill Jackson, who is our lawyer that handles financing for us. Alan, you and Marianne Van Dyne are the auditors that work with the district that can also give you guidance should you want to reach out to them. That's it for today.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Did you go to the slide with the bar charts? This? No, the blue chart. Yes, that one. So the one on the right, cash as a percent of monthly expenditures. Could you explain what that means?
The controller's office has all of our expenditures. We submit it to them through a form called the ST3. They also have our cash balances. So they do the math and create data and comparisons for every district. So they will take our average cash balance based on what we submit on the ST3s, which is an audited document. And then they divide it into the average monthly expenditure and come up with that ratio. So it's based on audited data that every school district submits to the controller's office by October 15th every year.
So like our number is 114.4%.
Mhm.
Is that 100% what our expenditure is? And then that 14% is the additional cash that we hold on to?
Above and beyond what the expenditures are for the month. That's correct.
So, and these other schools on Long Island are at 187%.
Yes, sir.
So they're at almost 200% of their monthly expenditures. They're holding on to that additional cash.
Yes, or they have double the cash that we have. You could look at it the same way, or close to double. Yeah, that's the way you view that. Okay. Thank you. I thought it was interesting that the state, all school districts, is 70, some odd percent higher than us also.
I have a question. I apologize. I'm sorry, I had to step out there for a second. So on the page that says options for the 24-25 to 10.6 million surplus.
Yes.
Couple questions that I have. And I think I came on the end when you said give money back to the taxpayer. That goes to the next slide. And where you were saying that you would lower the amount by, that you're giving examples here?
Yes.
Okay. So when you say fund our depleted reserve accounts, then they're not depleted, they're just lower than what we had. Just kind of clarify that statement for me.
They're lower than what they should be based on audit recommendations and based on our overall fiscal position. They're underfunded. The board has the option to take the surplus that is currently in the fund balance account and fund them, or they have the option to use that surplus for capital project for the three things I'm mentioning. And I believe that came up in audit committee meetings also, that you could fund your reserves with that money.
And so with the capital projects, that would have to be that would have to be voted on we would have to identify what the money would be used for.
We can do capital projects through the budget by putting it on the transfer to capital line. It's typically going to be a relatively small amount of money. We're not talking about millions of dollars, but if you wanted to repair a softball field, which is something we're talking about, price of $50,000, that's one thing, for example, that we're looking at. It fits in the budget. Then that excess in the fund balance, part of that 10.6 million, could be used for that. That is an option.
And the last question I had, if there's, let's say, for example, I know a question came up at the last meeting regarding summer programs. Let's just say if some of that money is used to do summer programs for this year, could the board consider doing something like that? So for the 26 in the summer, starting July 1st, 2026, because it will be after the budget had passed. Could we use any of that money for any type of summer programs for this summer?
The general financing theory is that you shouldn't use one-shot revenue sources, which is what this is, to fund ongoing reoccurring expenditures, which is what the summer program is. It doesn't mean other districts haven't done that in the past, used a one shot in year one and then placed it in the budget in year two, which is what you're describing. But it's not advisable to use fund balance and reserves to fund one shot things in the budget. The fund balance and reserves are there to help you when you have deficits and to pay for things so that you have time to react to the deficit. The summer program is something you should talk about and plan in the room and place in the budget. But again, it doesn't mean you can't do that. It's just not the most advisable way to use a one-time revenue source.
More questions?
So I'm going to start with what I said back on November 12th, which is the date that you informed the board of the $10.6 million surplus. And that is what I would like to see done with this is, number one, replenish our reserves. Number two, a 0% tax levy increase. And number three, return any funds back to the taxpayers. So we had this discussion on November 12th that the time had passed to be able to give checks back to the taxpayers, because Nassau County, which is part of our school district, already had their budget completed and done by the third Monday in October. So by the time we received information that we had a surplus, there was no possibility or mechanism to put money back into the taxpayers' hands in a traditional sense. So I just wanted to say that that's number one. Number two,
This would be this would be a third week of September sort of plan that if you were contemplating giving back the taxpayer, it would be in this next budget process. That's the intent of what I'm saying. This would be,
understood.
I think it's actually the third week of September. I forgot what the date was, but so this is something you would plan to give back this coming September.
Okay, so why don't you explain that a little bit further? Go ahead.
If you wanted to lower the tax levy by X amount of dollars, we would have to make that decision. Again, I believe it's the third week of September when we submit the tax levy and then forward that information to the townships, and they would collect the taxes at that lesser amount.
Can I just ask for clarification from what you just stated? I think if I heard you correctly, you were saying that write checks to give back to the taxpayers. Did you say that?
Well, in the form of a tax rebate.
Are
want me to address
are we allowed to do, can we give a
It's-
check?
I'm not aware of any mechanism where the school district can do that. I mean, that there is no way for us to do that. Upstate New York, they can do it. If the school district, the school board wanted to work with the townships, maybe there would be a way to do that. I just don't have any experience in that, but only the town of Babylon and town of Oyster Bay could issue one-shot rebate checks.
Understood. So I believe that our conversation prior and our legal counsel was here, and they said that the opportunity had already passed because Oyster Bay had already set theirs, and they set it
But this year,
for this year. So you're talking about carrying $10.6 million continuously carrying it.
to September of this coming year, yeah. Should that be the decision you're making?
Is there any reason why we can't have a 0% tax rate increase?
You're asking me my opinion? Sure. It's your decision, okay? But going out with a zero when the increase itself is 1.3 million, I'm sorry, 1.047 million. I don't think you get a lot of bang for your buck as a taxpayer with that amount of money. The district is big enough that they won't feel it. And if you recall the presentation about tax rates and equalization rates and how the tax rates are destabilized, there's no guarantee that going out at a zero or even in this case, a 1.5%. Let's talk about 1.5%. There's no guarantee that if you live in the town of Babylon, you're going to see 1.5%. You very well could see more than that. And the town of Oyster Bay could see a cut. And we went through those rates in a previous presentation. So because of the uniqueness of the litigation that is going on between Nassau County and town of Babylon and what it has done to the tax rates on the Oyster Bay and Babylon side of town, whatever levy we put up, there is no guarantee that that's what the taxpayers experience. In fact, this year, the town of Oyster Bay was hit, I believe, with some 7, 8, and 9% increase, and everybody in Babylon got a tax cut.
So Mike, and I
So
respect.
my point is it's just not that stable for them to experience it. I'm sorry.
No,
Go ahead.
no, understood, and I respect your opinion. But just so you know, and this is your report. This is your, well, I'll tell you what I'm getting at here. So back in 2020, 2021, we had a 0% tax increase, tax levy increase, 0%. And the surplus that we carried over was $4.7 million. So now we're carrying over 10.6, more than double. And you think it's not advisable to have a 0% tax levy increase?
I think given the metrics on the screen, the district doesn't have enough money in its fund balance and reserves to weather future deficits. The volatility of the surpluses and the deficits that we have discussed, should you have another deficit, only having 17%, given some of the state aid issues that we know are coming, I think that you should have as much money in your fund balance and reserve so that you can hold on to your programs and weather those state aid storms that I believe are coming.
Right, I understand that, but also Tom DiNapoli and the New York State Comptrollers limit how much you can have. Right, it's a 4%. You can't just save.
There's a
an
limit
extra of
on,
that.
yeah, there's 4%, and then there's some limit on some of the reserves that I explained to you in that transmit.
Understood. So for my, okay, so my next question, possibly my final question is, what is the best way to identify, as a board member, this $10.6 million surplus in the financial documents that you give us?
I believe we went through that. You would look at the final revenue and appropriation status, and we kind of went through it in a presentation. And you would look at the codes that have surpluses in them, that far right column. And the totals of those surpluses on the revenue and the expenditure side is $10.6 million.
So one of my concerns is this. If we overspend, just follow me for a second. Taxpayers approved a budget for 25-26. There are excess funds scattered throughout various lines. If one of those lines were to go over, but still have surplus funds, we would be depleting that 10.6.
So for this year.
Currently.
In this current year, if we end the year in a deficit, all codes, after you do all that math and we're in a negative, you would have to dip into that 10.6 to pay for that negative, all codes. I know you're saying if one code was, but I'm saying at the end of 25-26 school year, we have a deficit, which we've had before. You need the fund balance and reserves to pay for that deficit.
Understood. And those 10.6, that 10.6 surplus is not in any one particular line item, correct?
It's in the one line item called undesignated fund balance on the balance sheet in the audit report.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just have one. That's what.
I should answer. It's part of the account, the undesignated unreserved fund balance is the account that money is located in.
And does it show $10.6 million?
No, I believe it's off a little bit because some of the reserves were fed with interest and encumbrances, but it's close.
Are you
have
saying
to
that,
look at it.
are you saying that it's in excess of that amount?
I think it's below it, but still over the 4%. Remember, we allocated part of that overall 10.6 surplus. You have to do interest and encumbrances, so it's not going to equal the fund balance exactly 10.6. I believe it's like 8 to 9 million, which is still over.
Right, so let me just ask you this, get in my head right. So we have the 10.6, but by the end, when our books are closed this year in June, we might not have that 10.6. Well, that 10.6, 2 million or 3 million could be used to close the books. Out of it, if we do have a huge deficit.
Mhm.
Okay, all right. Are you predicting?
No, my last transmittal to the board, I see the budget today, and again,
Right.
it's very early. It's like predicting the weather. I see a surplus of, I think if we said 2 to 4 million.
Right.
So the budget looks strong
Okay.
today, and every month, the last day of the month or that last Friday, you'll get another estimate from me.
Okay,
And the closer we get to April, the more confident I'm gonna be in that
okay,
estimate.
thank you.
Can I go?
Oh, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank
one
you.
done.
Okay, so I am interested in not increasing taxes, and there's a few reasons. We have 4 million over our 4% in our unassigned fund balance. We have 2.9 million in the appropriated fund balance, so we have $7 million there. And what you're showing is that we really only need the $1 million in the taxpayer. So we would be able to not claim or the $1 million in the tax levy increase. And still put money into various reserves and or like you said, the capital projects. So then I have questions about your presentation that we've never really discussed, your slides that you sent to us about all of the fund balance and the reserve accounts.
Mhm.
So my questions are, which of these reserves are required by law? So the first one is workers' comp,
Not required by law.
not required by law.
These are better questions for council, but I don't think any reserves outside of the incumbents reserve are required for you to have. You're not required to have fund balance either, but that's a great way to be broke.
Okay, so then, in here, I think you mentioned it earlier, but I just want to ask again. Are recommendations to a funding level. There's no necessary like requirement that we have a certain or statute or any guideline that says, like you're saying, we're not even required to have all these various
There are,
reserves.
if you do have them, there are some rules about how much you can have in there, and there's clearly controllers' recommendations about policy, which were in audit reports, so you would have to do that.
Mhm.
But there's no legal requirement that you must have any of those reserves or even money in a fund balance.
Okay, so I think that what would be helpful for me, and I'm not sure about everyone else, but to understand, because what you've given us in these various fund balance like reserves is what we spent last year out of the reserves. So I think it would be helpful to see like the last 5 years and just kind of compare so that because based on 1 year, I'm kind of like, well, in this reserve, we have about 2.5, 3 years worth of reserve balance, but I don't have a good understanding as to like the year-to-year fluctuation and what comes out of these various reserves.
Each individual one.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful to see.
We put up on the screen your total fund balance and reserves in that big chart early on.
Right,
So you have the total number.
right.
The actual balances in each of the reserves are in the audit reports, and we can give you the 5-year history of each reserve in a transmittal.
Yeah, just kind of compile it so
Show
it's
you how
in
the
one
balances have
table.
changed.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that we can see what are we spending out of it. That's what I want to see. I want to see what,
Yeah, or how much have we used to pay for deficits, or how much have we funded with surpluses is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
That's what would change the reserve balance.
okay, yeah.
Along with
That's
interest.
what I'd like to see that in order to understand if I agree with the recommended funding levels in each of these reserves. Because we have a lot of money, and at the end of this slide, you say that, we have to move the excess funds out of the unappropriated fund balance by June 30th.
Yes.
So, yeah, so we have to talk about this and make a decision as a board as far as where is this excess money going. So I just wanna, okay. So I think those 5 years, that would be helpful to see. The reserve for capital,
Mhm.
so we had that expire. So I don't know, what does that mean? So we had money in this reserve and it's expired.
It's expired, and that money will, I think I'd have to look, it's a small amount of money left over
$40,000.
in that account that will come over to the general fund as a miscellaneous revenue when we close the book.
Okay, so that's additional surplus at the end of this year.
It's just a one-shot, small amount of revenue that will hit the general fund revenue account on June 30th because the reserve has in fact expired.
Understood. And it's not like huge money, but it is money. So then I think you said $2.5 to $4.5 million you're projecting right now for the year ends.
Mhm.
So that we were gonna have in excess. Okay. It would be helpful to understand where you're projecting that excess in tabular form, because it's just a number right now. And then my other question is, at the end of January, we still have $2 million unencumbered. So what do you think? What is that? What's that $20 million unencumbered at the end of January?
There's still purchase orders that need to go on for BOCES and some other codes. And I'm
Okay.
taking that into account with my estimation that we will have 2.5 to 4 million left over by June 30th. But again, it's early. There's a lot of estimation going on there. And some of the POs have not been put on the system.
Right, so you need the PO, so you're not even, you want the PO before you encumber it, because I was thinking that you pretty much were encumbering the rest of the spending for the second half of the school year.
I'm looking at contracts for BOCES and commitments for BOCES and expenditure history and giving estimates. And that's what that money is related to. It's for BOCES.
Okay, okay. So just going back to just like the concept of maybe not increasing the taxes. Can you just show us what is if we didn't add anything extra in the budget and you just took the budget and you just applied everyone's salary increases for next year, what is that? How does that land us in the, whether or not we needed to go to the top of the tax cap?
So you're saying if we went out with a 0 increase in property taxes,
No, I'm just talking about what do we need to run the school district?
for next year?
Yes.
Right now you have 1.77% increase. And we'll be done with the draft expenditure budget a week from Friday.
The 1 point, so that is just solely increases in salaries, nothing else added in there, because last year, we added softwares and whatever else was in there, furniture, like, just if you took this year's budget and you just dealt with like the salaries.
This is the revenue budget. So we're talking about how much money are we projecting that we will have to work with? And the answer is $122.9 million. And we're now developing the expenditure budget.
I'm interested in the expenditure budget. I want to know what we actually need to run the school district. That's what I want to know.
Mhm.
Without adding stuff to it. Okay. So that's what you're going to give us on Friday?
That's a week from Friday is when the budget transmittal gets home.
So it's not necessarily going to be an expenditure budget that takes us to the top of the tax cap. It's going to be an expenditure budget that reflects what we actually need.
Wherever it lands, then the answer is going to be this budget appears to be in a surplus or this budget appears to be in a deficit, depending on where the expenditure plan. But we're comparing it to is 122.9 million. That's the barometer for whether we have a projected budget surplus or deficit.
I understand that concept. Okay. You're saying we're gonna see it on Friday. We're gonna see what we actually
A week
need.
From Friday, you will have the projections of the 26-27 draft superintendent's budget
A week from Friday.
Yeah.
You're saying the
before
13th.
the recess. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Sure. Thank you, Mr. Snyder. At this point in time, if there's any community input on the agenda items, so that would be any questions from this report, this presentation, and for the draft agenda for next week.
Hello, Wendy Castro. That was,
Excuse me,
Yeah.
just hold on 1 second. We just need to change over the time. Just hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Make sure we're there.
can I just stop talking?
Go ahead.
Okay. That presentation was, not great. It was a lot of scare tactics. I'd encourage the board to do your homework. The example of giving $10 million back over 5 years is again, a distraction and fluff. It's not even relevant. Giving $1 million back for 5 years is irrelevant. We're talking about this year. This presentation was the sky is falling. Amityville is not a poor school district. You have a lot of money. As far as giving money back in a check, that doesn't happen. What they were talking about is if you applied within that time frame, taxes are paid biannually. The second half in January, the taxes would have been reduced, and that's a give back to the taxpayers. You talked like the scare tactic about what happens with state aid. Your own data shows for 5 years that the state aid went up. Your job is to forecast. There was a great question that said, how would you identify if there's a surplus? Super important question. And he said, you'd identify it through the appropriation status report. You guys haven't gotten one since October. Don't you think that's problematic as a board? It's problematic. Also, you keep talking about it's only 1.56% tax levy, but the max is 2.233. So put it in perspective. It is a lot. For your business official to say taxpayers won't really feel it is egregious. You represent the taxpayers. How dare you talk about my money that it's really insignificant? Every dollar is significant to me, especially since there was a surplus and you raised our taxes when there was a surplus. I'll remind the whole board, taxes were raised through no fault of your own, because I know the information you got, because I got it too, that there was a big gap and you had to raise the taxes only to find out that money was squirreled and there is a surplus. This is not a lot of money to give a 0% increase. You should all be you represent taxpayers and students. That's who the board represents, taxpayers and students. I'm just going to keep hammering that in, taxpayers and students. So I just have a couple of questions. What is the emergency that we're facing that makes you feel that it's necessary to raise taxes?
We're gonna hold on to the questions because we hold it, let's hold the time.
Okay.
Yeah, just.
Well, I see that it's still going. So I just have a few questions. What's the emergency? And also, if some of this revenue doesn't go as planned, who's paying the difference? Mr. Snyder doesn't seem to care that it's on the taxpayers. I heard him at the last presentation also. I'm just going to go over because you were running it when you stopped. But at the last presentation, he also said the taxpayers have to pay it. Taxpayers don't have to do anything. You guys decide that, and you're taxpayers too. You are taxpayers. I mean, stop buying into this.
So
Your hair's on fire.
we gave you some additional time.
Okay, I'll come back.
We have your questions and then we'll get the responses back. Yeah.
Questions are relevant to this presentation. Why wouldn't those questions be answered now?
So I'm just trying to, if the answers are going to be able to provide it, we'll provide them now. If not, then we'll get the
Well,
answer back to you.
the question is,
We have the questions.
okay, but I just asked the question, so why are you going on to the next person and not answering my
Because
questions?
I'm giving everyone else an opportunity. If no one else wants to come up, then you can answer your questions or somebody can answer questions.
But
So
what happens, Lisa, is the questions get lost when you go to one person to the next.
we have your question. If there's no one else that wants to come up, then we can answer your question. Okay. Is any other-
I don't think that's normally how
Is
it
there
works.
any other community input? If there's no other community input, then we can answer the question. It's not, we're not going to answer if it's no, we'll just say there's no community input. We have the questions and then we can go from there. Hold on a second, Emery, can you just reset the timer? Thank you.
Ready?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Margaret Jeff, Amityville. So my question is regarding the presentation. Kind of mind blowing, really. But, so for the options, sorry, I do this every time. For the options for the 10.6 surplus, you had mentioned, Ms. Johnson, regarding the summer program could be dipped into the surplus for summer programs, et cetera, et cetera. So my question is, like, what would be the average program that you would, that if it's top of mind on a summer program or X amount of summer programs, what would be that expenditure to input these quote summer programs? And if we do have this huge surplus, why does it have to only be, and I agree entirely that you don't just put money that you have and put it into 1 year. But if we have 10.6 million right now, and why can't we fund that summer, like just say it's a summer program, it doesn't have to be for 1 year. Apportion it out for the next 5 years. Why does it have to be just that year? And of all three things, with the 10.6 million, you could actually do all three. Number three, give me back to the taxpayer by a zero tax levy and no increase. That's giving back to the taxpayer right off the cuff. Then you do your capital projects. It's called a budget. You have 10.6 million, you can give it a cushion, you can maybe start with 8. All right, 8. X amount of million goes to capital projects, X amount of million go to the summer programs that are portioned out the next 5 years. Or at least it gives some fund balance, some for the summer programs. You're not just doing 1 year, you're doing it for 5 years. At least you're getting 5 years out of this surplus that occurred. And my other question is, is it a possibility to take X amount of million and apportion it out for the next 5 years for earmarked for summer programs and keep it only for summer programs, yes or no?
Let me just say the other question that you have as well, and then one will answer all the questions at one time. People need to come back, come back. So
Okay,
just to be,
and so if the budget relies on these revenue streams that you described, what is to say that these revenue streams will occur again, and then you're into a deficit on the budget? So maybe how much of the budget relies on the revenue stream that may not exist in the future?
those are the two questions that you have.
And then I'm stressing that there is no stress, like the controller. I just want to make sure that we really have a surplus. So I don't feel like we're in a very stressful situation. So I don't understand how the commentary here seems like we're in dire straits, and yet I don't feel the 10.6 million you could possibly be in dire straits.
All right, thank you. So we have the questions from Ms. Canestro. Is any other community input? Because what I'm going to do, we'll answer all the questions.
Okay.
Do you have any additional questions?
Not at this.
Okay.
Hi. A huge red flag went up, and I hope it went up for all of you, when he said you may be in a deficit at the end of this budget. If you remember, that's what got you guys in trouble in 22, 23. You are required to operate within the voter-approved budget. You have no authority to go above that. None. Red flag, guys. Also, the word depleting all of your reserves is inflammatory. I doubt very much that any of you would deplete all of your reserves. Let me just see what else. As for the pilot, the revenue jumps from 1.77 million to 2.1 million. What specific agreements support that increase? Do you have agreements that makes you think that you're going to get more? And are those pilot amounts guaranteed, or are there projections? Because if he's over projecting and there's no agreements, there's no guarantee that you're going to have that. So that becomes a problem with forecasting. And it really seems like the notion is to raise taxes just because you can, not because it's a necessity. And I just come back to, we have all these millions of dollars, and you're going back. I've only heard 2 trustees say that they want a 0% tax increase. I can't believe it. You have 10.6 million. It's just over $1 million. Like, I don't even know why nobody else is weighing in. I am interested in what the other trustees, if they want a 0% tax increase or not. Your constituents deserve to know that. There's only 2 people that are speaking about that. This is nothing more than a scare tactic presentation with a lot of fluff and projections year out. And really, it's quite a mess. And in any other district, taxpayers would be storming a board meeting and sending you emails, but just so you know, none of your emails are on the website anymore, so you can't even hear from the public. Those have been wiped clean. Central administration emails wiped clean. FOIL information wiped clean. DASA information for parents and DASA forms wiped clean. You guys should start digging into what's happening over here.
Thank you. So we're gonna answer the questions. So Dr. Talbot, the questions that were provided in the beginning from Ms. Canespo, can we provide any responses to those questions, please?
So the first question, if I understood it correctly, was regarding what is the emergency to raise taxes? It's framed as an emergency, whereas it has been presented, Mr. Snyder, as a recommendation. Would you take a moment just to expound on that? Just as I'm looking at the page with the yellow highlights that talks about one of the options, if there was 1.5% with $1 million give back, if that was to continue on for year 2 or 3, what would that mean for staffing in the district?
It means
Stability
under
of
that
staff.
scenario, a cumulative loss of $2 million in taxpayer funding. Every year you would lose $1 million and it would continue on in perpetuity. The point of that slide was to point out that it's not a one-shot give back. It's spoke about rebate checks and how we can't do that. And, you know, that would certainly be a more favorable way if the board wanted to give money back to the taxpayer, that we can do a one-time check. But lowering the tax levy, there's no way to get that money back except for piercing. So you're giving it back and you're giving it back every year. And the purpose of that slide is to show, and at least make it clear, that this is a cumulative effect that will go on forever.
Can I ask a question? But that's also, let's be fair. That's also, you can say that about every single district on Long Island that does not go right up to the tax levy max. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So every single school district that does not tax to the max will probably cumulatively lose X amount of dollars. Yes, this isn't unique to Amityville.
But do they have a larger?
The difference is Amityville is at 15% fund balance and reserves as a percentage of the budget. And the average Long Island district is now at 25%. So the average Long Island district has much more of a higher threshold to absorb future deficits should you have them than Amityville. And you've experienced that here over the past 15 years, where you have had deficits. You did not have enough money in your fund balance and reserves to absorb the deficits, and had a very low fiscal position, had very weak cash, had a fiscal monitor who came in to watch you. 15%, 17% is not strong. It's not strong, not when the rest of Long Island is at 28%. What it's saying is that your rainy day funds, which are called fund balance and reserves, they're savings accounts, are not as high as they should be relative to other Long Island districts, so that if you ultimately have future operating deficits, which could very well happen, look at your history, you're not that strong to absorb them at 15% compared to other Long Island districts. That's what that's saying.
Right, but I respect that opinion, but in all fairness, after coming back from just about back-to-back deficits, 15% is fairly reasonable. That's a fairly all right position to be at, figuring what we've been through. That's a good point to rebuild.
So still not safe. I guess that's why I'm asking, what do we really need to run the district? Instead of just,
that percentage.
yes, like, do we actually need that? I want to see. It comes down to budgeting, right? It comes down to really having a strong understanding of what all the expenditures are in each category, And that's why I asked about what's our our projections the year ends, because I want to see where did we build too much, potentially too much money in, right? And then, Juan, to your point of like being in a good position, I agree with you. I agree with you. When we were in negotiations last year, projecting out because, teachers' salaries are a huge percentage of the, budget, it was always presented as though we were going to be refunding the unassigned fund balance slowly. But all of a sudden it was like, we have $8 million in excess. Like that was never, so it's like, well, what did we actually need to ask the taxpayers for? Because it wasn't that. And so, it does seem scary to say, okay, well, if you give back this money now, every year thereafter, you can't ask for more from the taxpayer. You're limited because the tax cap is limited to your prior year's budget. And that's what this is showing. But again, what do we actually need to run the district? And that's why I asked months ago, what's our year-end projection? Where do we potentially see if there's shortfalls or, no, I know, I'm just saying, like, you gave us $2.5 to $4.5 million, like, but you didn't give us like an understanding of where that is in the budget. But you must know, right? So I'm saying we're the board trustees, so you can show us where do you right now see that there is contingency? That's what I'm asking for as a board trustee, as we approach getting a draft 26-27 budget from you for the first time. Because otherwise, how do we know where we need to start? If we don't know what we actually needed for this year, and we don't know what we needed for the prior year either, because we ended up with $8 million in excess. So does that make sense? I see some confused faces. If that doesn't make sense, we can talk about it some more. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. I understand. You have to just speak more into the mic.
No, I'm saying that, yeah.
Right.
Now, you want him to.
Trustee, you have to.
Sorry, you want, Mr. Schneider to project, and hopefully they're close to.
I understand. Listen, I understand. You're projecting. It's a projection, but as board trustees at the beginning of a budget season, we should know which category we may have $2.5 to $4.5 million in excess. We
But
know that.
But I also think that is, go ahead.
Then build a budget on top of it if we don't know where this year's excess lies.
But for me personally, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but as we go along, that's what I want to see in the budget process. I want to be able to see what are all of my options to one of the questions that were asked in terms of the summer program. Instead of being a one-shot deal, is there any way that summer programs could be placed in the budget over the next 5 years? So therefore, the school district knows that they have, I'm just throwing out a number, $200,000 to run summer programs. So that's how I look at it. But I think also what I'm looking to see, so when we talk about the 0% tax cap, I want to be able to see, okay, right now we have this amount of money. Right now we have this amount of money that's encumbered. This is amount of money that we've already done the expenditures for this. We know that we exactly have this amount that's left. I need to be able to see if I do 0%, it means that. If I do 1%, it means that. I need to see all my options. I need to see that transportation, we know it's going to be this amount for this year. We know that like with the health insurance, that we got this really great thing that was only 0% that we just found out. Now for next year, we found out in January that I think it's like 8% for this year. So I need to see everything. So I'm not saying that I've made a decision, yes or no, in regarding what in terms of tax cap. I need to see all my information, be informed, and that way I can make that, but I can be part of the process to make that particular decision. So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at this point in time. So
but what are you asking for? Because I clearly asked for what do we actually need in our budget for next year? Like, I don't want a budget that shows anything like extra. I don't want anything extra in it. Like, I just want to know, what do we actually need in the budget for next year?
And to your point, when I say, and you're saying what's actually needed, I want to know when it comes to transportation, if we know transportation is going to cost us $2 million hypothetically, because it's not going to change over the next couple of years. If we know already that right now, we've been given 8% for health insurance, we know that's a known fact. What we don't know is in December of 2026, we'll be told again what the health insurance is going to be for 2027. So last year, when we found out that it was going to be 0%, that was totally unexpected. So are we going to get another 0%? Do we plan for 0% or no? Or do we plan again for another 8% for January 2027? So when we're asking for the bare budget, the bare basic budget,
Yes.
when we're asking for that information, it should include, in my opinion, when I'm looking at my decision, that we expect or we think, because we don't know, I'm just using health insurance as an example, that it was 8% in December of 2025. So we think it's going to be another 8% in 2026, or we think it may go back up to 10%, just hypothetically.
Understood, Lisa.
So
The
that
assumptions can be stated and we can verify if we agree with the assumption or if we want the assumption to be more.
correct,
Completely agreed,
Correct.
but the bare bones budget is where you start.
correct.
And
But
then you tack on from there.
right, I think we're saying the same
I
thing.
think we are too. I think we are too.
So
And I did want to talk, like, I brought up the summer programs last meeting, so I know you mentioned it. I didn't think that we can just use, are we going to the questions? Because
Yeah, I just
what
wanna-
was asked.
Yeah, that
about
was
the
one of the things.
summer
I want to just go
programs.
back to the questions. One of the questions with as I already mentioned, summer program, I had just stated, because it was mentioned last week about summer programs. So my question was, and it was brought, not question, but I mentioned that, but it was brought up as a question, can it be planned for the next 3 to 5 years hypothetically in terms of summer programs? What would be the cost to run summer programs? What type of summer programs? So we would have to look at, I guess, the type of summer programs and the cost. So is that something that can be looked at and provided to the board, so we will know that if we run a summer program, it'll be for these grade levels and this is what we could offer? Different variations of it.
Just a couple. The budget gets rolled over. And things like materials and supplies and other BOCE services and get frozen
Okay,
because we did freeze them.
yeah,
And then anything new will be clearly identified on a slide, should we have the ability to afford it, given what I just disclosed as our revenue. So we are doing, well, I do, I roll the budget over as a bare bones, what are we required to do?
Okay.
Same as last year. Then what is new in the budget is always very interesting because it's good marketing material. So if we can afford a budget, a summer program in the budget, it will be right up there with the cost. What I am not in favor of is using fund balance and reserves to fund it. Which is what I think part of the question,
That was,
why not use the surplus and the
That was
fund
my
balance to
question.
fund it? It's bad finance.
that was my question.
right.
And,
So we didn't start with a bare bones budget last year. So
I don't.
I just, so, well, to clarify, I guess what I would like to see so that it helps me as a board trustee. That's why I wanted to speak about that. So if that's your intention, then great.
and the other question that was asked was, how much revenue stream do we rely on? No, there was how much revenues, go ahead, what do you have? There was a question about revenue stream. Can you just come back to the mic for me? It was about the revenue stream. Yeah, how much of the budget relies on revenue stream? Yeah. So we have a question, go ahead. So is that something that can be answered?
That will not occur in the future? Is that what the last part of that question? How much of budget relies on revenue and not budgeting is estimated. It's not accounting. There's two different things we do in the business office. We account for what has happened in the past, which is an exact
The
science.
question is, of the revenue streams that we currently are basing this budget or revenue budget on,
Do you know of anything that's not gonna happen again? Simple, yes,
Right
no?
now, no. But could some of these revenue streams not happen? Absolutely.
What would be an example of that?
An example of it could be Medicaid, given the political environment for Medicaid. If you look at that slide, if you have it, we have a budget there, 325,000. I lowered it to 75,000 judgmentally because I don't exactly trust some of the dialogue going on between the feds and the state. And I think that Medicaid could get cut, so I lowered the budget.
When you do your estimations, do you base your estimations on any of your the climate of the schools of Long Island? Like, you're just pulling this out of your hat and saying, well,
No,
I'm
I
gonna
have,
lower it, or,
I have a long history of what's actually been earned in each code, so
Okay.
you use what's
Yeah.
happened in the past, and I look at 5 years,
okay,
and then I look at basic information, and
Right.
then I make an estimation.
right. And to get back to your comment saying, having, the fund balance used for, say, something like a summer program or what have you, is that these kids have done without for quite some time. It seems like, and we're always cutting for the kids. So I'm using the summer programs and things of that sort as an example. That's going to go back to the kids. But you're saying that it's not a good idea and it's not good finance. Well, I don't think in my existence in the school district, I don't think we've ever seen a 10.6 million surplus ever. So I think in reality, if we can bring ourselves into some type of reality here, I think we can assess the fact that maybe taking some of that surplus, even though it's not good finance, we've never seen that ever. And say, you know what, the kids
So-
deserve a summer program.
So I'm just gonna, we just need to move this
And the question
along.
was, can it be, if you took
We-
$3 million, if you're gonna answer my question, if you're gonna take
I
3
think
million.
we got the question.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't answer my question, because my question was, if you took 3 million of the 10.6 million as a figurative figure for summer programs, not for just 1 year, and apportioned it out, could you physically take that money and apportion it out for at least 5 years to give those kids something that we can grasp on for 5 years?
So we.
Yes or no?
We have the question, and I think the response was it would have to be planned out in the budget to see what that looks like. So it's something that we're not saying no, and we're not saying yes, but there's a couple of factors behind that. Number one is what will the summer programs be and how much will they cost?
Right.
So once that's known, and that was the question that was passed, so it's something that will be looked at when we go to develop the budget. So we're not saying yes or no. So
But-
will be looked at.
But not for 1 year.
Right, that we're saying not for 1 year.
Earmark it
Right.
the next X
Right.
amount of years.
And there was another question about, what was specific agreements that support the pilots? Are there any specific agreements that support the pilots?
There are no agreements that support the pilot that have been transmitted to the district. The IDA is responsible to provide us that information, and they don't. It's a known issue in the town of Babylon. The revenue budget of 2.1 million is based on a 5-year history. You see the actuals right up on the screen, 24-25, 2,150,000. We're on track for 2.3 million this year based on payments we've received. 2.1 million is a pretty conservative budget given where we are today. But there's no guarantees when we don't have the actual legislative agreements provided to us.
Thank you.
So there's no way we can get these agreements that were made with these pilot projects?
Ma'am, I've been asking for them since I began working in the town of Babylon with the state at Winedale. They wanted to see them too. We never got them from the IDA. It came up also in budget advisory committee where there was a gentleman there. I'm sorry, I forget his name, but he had a contact in town of Babylon and he was going to see if he can get them for us.
Is that not something that's spoilable? Like, it's a contract with it's a contract with this
Good question.
developer. Like, why is that? That doesn't make any sense to me that we wouldn't have.
Doesn't. But every school district in Babylon is not getting information about their foils, so the budgeting tactic is to lag it. which
I mean,
is what
about the
we're
pilot. Not getting information about the pilot, not
doing.
the
The
foil.
pilots. I'm sorry, did I say something
You
else?
said foil.
Oh, so we lag it. That's the only thing you can do.
So is it like based on how many students are housed in those developments then? So we just get money from the pilot and we don't know, and you're just projecting what the net money will be for next year, the revenue.
Based on what I've received this year.
We have, there must be some other way to go about this.
Can I ask, how much of a lag, so to speak, is there?
1 year.
So I'm assuming you've seen something for the previous year.
Yeah, it's up on this 2,150,000 is what was earned in 24-25.
Okay,
We're on track to earn a little bit more than that this year based on payments we received. It should have the agreements. There's no argument there. The controller's office was working on it with me and couldn't get them.
All right, so what I'm gonna do, I know that there was one question from Ms. Knischel that wasn't answered, but what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go through the agenda and when it's time for the input on non-agenda items, I'll just ask you to repeat that question again, okay? So I'll let you, I'll give you that time and so just come back to the mic for 1 second. So I thought the question had been written down and the question had not been written down. So that's
okay.
why. So if you just give us the question
Yeah,
one
no
more time,
problem.
please, then.
Yeah, no problem. My question is, if the revenues don't come in as planned and you're short, where is the money coming from? Is it coming from taxpayers or is it coming from the reserves? Who's picking up that tab?
So one more time, everyone got the question?
For this year, for example, what you're saying, in 25-26, if we don't get all the revenues that you saw on the screen budgeted, and then we wind up spending the budget, you would have yourself a deficit, and then you would need fund balance and reserve accounts to pay for that deficit.
But Mr. Snyder, the voters approve a budget. You have to operate within that budget. You don't have any authority to spend $1 more than that budget.
But that wasn't your question. Your question is if the revenues don't come in
Right.
and you're short, then I responded, okay, so now I have a deficit on the revenue side. If I fully spend my money on the expenditure side, then I have a deficit to end the year and I need fund balance and reserves to pay for that.
So the answer is reserves?
Fund balance or reserves, or both.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we're gonna move over to review of the agenda for February 11th. And we will start with,
Lisa, can I just say, ask one question? I know you want to move on, but summer programs were funded through grants. Are there any other programs that were funded by grants in the past that we can use some of this money for, other than the summer program? I'm just wondering if there's other programs that we have had sustained by a grant and now we have lost them or will lose them. Well, there are a few, I'm sure, that we can explore.
Well, summer programs have previously been funded by Leaders of Tomorrow grant and Recovs. And as we shared, they're expiring with no indication that they will be funded moving forward. We have had several conversations about summer school planning, summer program design with our administrators who are also talking with educators. And we do have some thoughts about how to design a summer program based on the data that we've been reviewing. And that is yet to be determined if funding will be available for that at this time. And we are in the process of beginning to price that out. Would you like to add any additional details? Oh.
so going to the February 11th agenda. Any comments regarding the minutes? I know that for December the 10th, we're gonna have to, we got advice from council, so we have to add the wording from the resolution onto the agenda for the for the minutes. It was the November minutes that had the resolution in it, so.
December 10th.
So it's this December 10th meeting. But on the December 10th meeting, there was the November minutes, if I remember correctly.
there was something with the minutes there that
Yeah.
was jumbled up and I still can't make sense of it. And I would say that if we could just not amend minutes and accept them like amending with a vote, that would be helpful in our documentation process going forward. But there was the mascot resolution on December 10th that
Right,
we changed during public discussion.
yes.
And we need,
The-
we
the-
need to include the entire resolution.
Right, the wording for that resolution has to go into the agenda. And so that needs to be added there. And does anyone have anything else for December 10th minutes or the January 21st minutes? So the biggest thing is the adding of the wording of the resolution that was amended, and the minutes go from the November 19th minute, and that's where that's coming from.
It's, on page 3. It's 2C1 of the December 10th minutes.
I'm sorry, hold on, sorry. Yeah, yes, the wording for the resolution has to be placed there. No?
But you keep mentioning the November meetings, so I just
I
trying to
know.
clarify. I wasn't sure what you meant by that.
Oh, I see what you're saying, okay.
Okay. Okay.
That was my error.
November has that botched up, I don't know what it is up there.
So, yes, so and listen back to it, so what it was that there was, for those minutes, and I think that's what I was getting, so
Yeah.
for the November 19th minutes, which were on the December 10th minutes, there was a motion that was done, and then there was a discussion. And in that discussion, there was a motion to approve those minutes as amended, and the minute item was that, item 2A2 to be removed, to say 1 yes, which was you, and then 5 no. So that's, if you listen to the audio, that's what that's for.
I listened and it still didn't make sense. So I'm just saying if we could just not amend minutes like this, just
But I mean,
go
maybe,
back, fix the word file and then bring it rather than have like a vote to amend it anyway. That would be
Yeah.
my preference because that doesn't really make sense.
but I mean, maybe we need to listen together, because that's what I heard, you know what I mean, for that particular, and that's how that got cleaned up. So, okay,
Sure.
right. Any other things on the minutes? All right, so 3A1 was already discussed in executive session. We're going down to 3B1 through H. The only question I have is for the TBDs. Will we be getting any additional information on the TBDs? I mean, for all the TBDs.
So some may be,
Just speaking to the mic for us.
some may be removed because we haven't had candidates apply. Art teachers are doing demo lessons tomorrow and we've already asked them to provide references for us. Oh, is it not on?
Yeah, just be closer to the mic.
Sorry. Art teacher demonstration lessons are tomorrow, and we've already asked each of the finalists for that, for references, so that we're making sure that that moves forward. There are other items that, yes, I believe will be filled in, as discussed by the board during the executive session tonight. So we are looking to fill them in. The recobs should be filled in. Always.
And the recards are the remaining part connected to that, to the grant.
That's correct.
What is that? What is that? Can we speak about it? Like, the recap, yeah. The grants itself or the program that they're going, the program. So, the buildings looked at their data to determine which students would benefit most from filling in the gaps of the learning loss. And so there are 2 different types of programs running. There's going to be after-school programs for the buildings, where they're providing, Regents support at the secondary level and then filling the gaps at the middle and elementary levels.
on Saturdays, part of the learning loss is the understanding as parents about the value of attendance and ways that you can support students. So there's going to be a Saturday parent program running, as well as programs for students. So they will be running for each of the buildings for the end of February through the beginning of May.
Thank you. So is that's a federal money or that's state money as well?
No, that we get it through New York State. I don't know if they funnel it.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, so that's, thank you, 3B1A through H. 2A and then 3A, all the way down to triple K on page 3. Any questions regard to those areas? Any questions regarding, there's nothing for 4 and 5. Anything regarding 6A? Any questions regarding that? I'm on page 3. And then 7A through 7M, any questions regarding those particular areas at all? All right, 8A and 8A, 9A, any questions on 8A or 9A? All right, 10A down to 10I, any questions? Any questions on 3C 1 and 2?
Yes, I have something with donations. What is this foundation that is very generous with their donation for our students? And
Thank you. Mary Stevens, can you give them the update on the foundation? It's a wonderful
Yeah.
opportunity for our students.
The Gary Sinise Foundation actually has a number of different programs, but this particular one provides opportunities for students to learn about U.S. history through various field trips. They're currently working with local school districts to be able to visit the 9/11 memorial and learn about 9/11. They do sponsor trips in other parts of the country, and they are hoping to someday expand to have other parts of the country come to New York. Their offer to us was very generous. They are fully funding a trip for our juniors to be able to go.
I just wanted to finish. I just wanted to say, I do have some familiarity with the Gary Sinise Foundation. I know that he does a lot of work with veterans. I know that a lot of times he's involved with like Honor Flight, where they send veterans, World War II veterans down to DC and things like that. And he does all kinds of stuff like pay off mortgages and things like that for surviving spouses of veterans. For those that don't know who Gary Sinise is, if you've ever seen the movie Forrest Gump, it's Lieutenant Dan. That's Gary Sinise.
Any other questions? So 3B.
Sorry, one question. I'm not sure if you said it. Did we reach out to that foundation or did they contact us?
Dr. Cardone, through his contacts with other principals on Long Island, found out about the program and was able to make contact with them.
Thank you.
Anything regarding 3D 1 or 2?
Yes.
All right, that was Chris. Was that you?
Yes, that was Chris. Revisiting custodial overtime,
Which one are you on?
the appropriation status report,
November, December one?
December.
Thanks.
This is on page 3, I believe it was.
Page 3.
Page 3. This subject that I've brought up a number of times, so you can see custodial overtime in the last column where it's showing available. We already have overtime in Northeast. The middle school and the high school is now in the negative, and that combined category where it's negative 15,000. And I was looking at what our budget for the year is compared to the previous 2 school years. So our budget for this year is 77,500 for all the buildings. Compared to last year it was 153,000. The year before it was 173,000. So currently we've expensed over the past 6 months 93,000. And if this trend continues, we're going to be at 186,000, which is blowing way past our current budget or previous budget. Oh, well, blowing past the current, what's currently budgeted and the previous budgets.
The current budget was cut without a plan by my predecessor and I think
see
we've
that.
spoken about that.
Right,
that
it was just cut in half.
It's very difficult to control this when you talk about the facility use, and some of it is absenteeism. And if you look at the substitute line, you can see that pretty clearly also. It's equally a problem when you look down at the custodial subs.
Right. And like, I know that with the, compared to the overall budget, this is, for lack of a better term, a drop in the bucket. But my concern is, this is just what I'm able to see now, looking at these pages of lines. And I'm concerned that there's other areas of the budget that are soon going to be showing similar issues.
Well, certainly the overtime is a problem. The budget, as I told you in the transmittal today, looks strong, 2 to 4 million surplus. That doesn't mean things can't change, to your point, because there's still a long ways to go. It's a very early prediction, and the earlier you make it, the more it's going to be wrong. But there are problems with the overtime code. There's no doubt about it. And then there's some situations that are going on with facility use, as we mentioned before, and absenteeism that are causing these codes to spike.
Are there any specific lines in the budget that, barring any emergency, that if we just continue on a normal school year where you're currently looking at it, where it's possible that you're going to be running into a similar issue?
For surplus or,
Deficit.
I'd have to go back and look at my computer, sir. When I did the projection, there were certain codes that I thought were going to go red. Nothing to the extent of what we're seeing in overtime. But I was more concerned about the codes that were in surplus, because that's what I was looking at. And, to sort of give you a hint to it, a lot of the surplus is coming out of BOCES from what I'm seeing. And I'm a little bit on the revenue side, but overtime is a problem, and we'll have to see what happens with health benefits. It looks strong, but it's a pretty volatile code. Workers' comp is always a problem. Always a problem.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question. In looking at the reports, and there's a number of areas in terms of available where it is negative, right? So my biggest concern is what we went through previously. So when will those negatives become positive? So, you know what I mean? So if we encumbered a certain amount and we only have X available left, but there's a number which are there are a couple that are pretty high numbers, and that stood out to me. So
Some things we talked about, like if you look at administrative salary, you see a very large negative there and then a very large surplus below it. A lot of the negatives that you see, a good portion of them are just because where things were budgeted and where staff gets transferred to, or where they're getting paid from, is different. So you have to sort of look at codes sometimes altogether. And clearly the overtime altogether is a problem, but when you look at certain salary codes that are negative, and if you look right below it and you see surpluses, that just typically means that the staff member was in one code last year and is in another code this year, or the budget was just off. They budgeted for a person at Northeast and they went to Northwest.
So as my question is, so the next appropriation status report that we look at, if someone was incorrectly placed in a certain code, is that going to change? Will that?
Typically we do that, I do that in February. They're working on it now. So when you get a February report, a lot of this will get cleaned up. Then a lot of it did get cleaned up in December. If you notice it, it's better than November. But I do a large round of budget transfers in February.
So for the next meeting, you're gonna ask us to approve the budget transfers?
It would probably be after the recess.
Okay. Because it's kind of helpful in the budget planning, right, to see it and actually, so that you almost like leave it as is.
Schools of thought on it, leave it and track the deficit, and then if you cover it, it goes away, then you're not paying attention to it.
Right.
I like to do big transfers twice a year, but I'm always tracking it.
Mhm.
I tend to disregard budget transfers when I'm projecting and use the original budget, just to give you a little inside baseball. But I cover the transfers when I'm comfortable that I have codes that are in a surplus, because I don't want to undo a transfer, because it's just, I want to be forecasting correctly, and there's an accounting to it, and then there's an art to it. You know, I want to make sure the codes that I'm taking money out of are going to end in surpluses.
Right.
And that's why I like to wait, because the longer you wait, the more confidence you have that you're doing the right thing. But overall, the entire budget looks like it's in a surplus position predominantly because of BOCE.
Madam President, I have a quick question. So with the projection of $2 to $4 million, that's what you're projecting surplus. Even like what Second Vice President Chris Nearing brought up, that already in February we have busted the budget on certain line items. Overtime being one of them. I think another one has to do with facility usage, right? And if I'm incorrect, tell me, facility usage along with right, in the context of overtime. When it comes to forecasting, and you might know more than I do, it's probably ideal to have a budget that's very, very close to what we think we're going to spend. So, okay, so for us to be in February,
It's better to have a budget that is over what you think you're going to spend, because we want surplus, right? To be honest.
right, yeah. So, but
in this case, something happened with the overtime budgeting, a year ago. And in my forecasting, I am accounting for overtime to keep trending the way it is. And when I arrived at that 2 to 4 million, I am looking at overtime as if it is going to keep tracking the way it's tracking now, to answer your question. So I'm accounting for that code going negative. I'm looking at health insurance as if it's going to come in worst case. Certain special education students are going to remain here in my conversations, and that utilities are going to track at a higher rate than perhaps they are. I'm trying to be conservative in those estimates so that maybe it's closer to 4 million and not 2 million.
So my question is, are we, and this is really a question for the board as well, are we doing anything to try to curb this trend? If we know that it's already busted, we can't have this go out of control.
We can either restore the budget codes back to a more reasonable level, which is what we're doing with the 26-27 budget, or we have to talk about cuts to certain programs. And then there's normal absenteeism that happens. Maybe normal is the wrong word, but there's custodial absenteeism that we have to take into account. But without addressing sports, facility use, music, and all that, a lot of the overtime is being generated there, sir.
Okay, so you do plan on giving the board, I see here, a budget update at our next meeting on February 11th, correct? Says it right here.
Yeah. So I missed the question. Oh, I'm gonna give you a budget projection at the end of a surplus or deficit projection on the February 28th transmittal. Yes,
Okay, so my question here is,
February
You-
28th and February,
whatever that Friday is.
February 13th.
that's,
After what I said is at the last transmittal of every month, I will continue to update you on a projection.
So let's clarify it.
Yeah.
I think earlier it may have been said the Friday from,
Before
Yeah.
recess.
but I know the plans to
Oh,
come together
two different
over the
things, two
break.
different things.
Yeah,
I'm gonna give the board an expenditure budget projection on where I think the expenditure budget is on the Friday before the recess.
the 13th.
Yes, the next surplus projection comes at the end of February and then at the end of March. Talk about two separate things.
understood. So what I'm getting at is this, you are making a presentation to us on February 11th. A budget presentation.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and I hope that for me, now speak for myself, that you will be able to dive a little bit deeper into some of these budget line items that are already expended and in the negative, and what our plan is to shift funds. Because you said that you will ask the board for several transfers. So can you give us a little sneak peek, maybe on February 11th, on how you make some of those budget line items whole and sustainable for the rest of the year? I mean, can you do that?
On the 13th, you'll get an expenditure budget overview similar to what you saw on the revenue side. Then in March, we'll dive more into detail, and then we have that line by line meeting where you'll have a detailed budget line by line. But are you talking about a 25-26 projection or a 26-27 budget?
I'm talking about the 25-26 budget in which certain line items are already expended and in the red and in the negative, some kind of preliminary plan as how do we make that whole and sustainable for the rest of the 25-26 school year.
Budget transfer.
I know that.
But you're asking for a presentation to summarize, like, okay, custodial overtime needs money and I'm gonna take it out of here.
Yes, something along those lines.
Those are budget transfers.
Right, but what I'm asking is where are they coming from? That's not for right now.
Right.
What I'm asking for February 11th, can you think about that? You don't know? Oh, okay. All right.
Any other questions regarding?
So what
Okay.
is the presentation? So what is the planned presentation for next Wednesday?
Just speak a little closer to the microphone.
Similar to what you saw today, but the expenditure,
Okay.
same type of format. And then in March, it's detailed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. Any other questions on the two treasury reports? Seeing none, let's go to 3E. Any questions regarding the contracts? Three F, any questions regarding approval of conferences? Seeing on any old or new business that anyone wants to bring up at this, oh, no, at this point in time, we're gonna go back to, the February 4th agenda. So from the February 4th agenda, we're back on there. Is there any new or old business that any board members would like to bring up?
I just have a quick question for Mr. Snyder in regard to our discussion with revenues. The pilots within the village of Amityville, wouldn't you be able to get copies of the agreements from the village directly?
I'm not sure what pilots the village of Amityville controls, part of my ignorance on that one. I believe that the town of Babylon and the town of Oyster Bay control the pilots through administrative agency is referred to as the IDA, the Industrial Development Agency. And the problem with getting communication from the IDA is they point to the towns and the towns point to the IDA. Whether or not the village itself can award pilots, I'm not sure of that. I think this is the
I
first.
think they might have
They might.
agreements.
This is the
with them.
first incorporated village I've worked in, so I'm not sure what kind
Right.
of authority they have. So it's a
Okay.
good question,
I'll give you the contact.
please.
Do you have a resolution for the board's consideration?
Go ahead.
For the board's consideration, resolution reopening the Assistant Superintendent of Finance position. I would like to add that to the agenda for consideration.
But it's already been reopened. It's been, it hasn't, isn't there a posting that's going up for the position, Dr. Talbot?
The posting has gone up. The first round interviews have been conducted.
For assistant superintendent?
Second.
No, it's already up. It's already
Okay,
been
so
posted.
here, let me.
Want to hear the resolution. I feel like you're pausing.
So here, let me give you some context.
Well, I mean, what is the resolution? Because what is the resolution that you're? that
Sure.
you want to do?
I would like the board to consider opening up the position for a wider search. So the position was posted from January 15th until January 28th, which is less than 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks at the end of January to fill a critical position. So I think my question is more towards the superintendent. So my question is more towards superintendent. Dr. Talbert, do you believe that opening this position for less than 2 weeks at the end of January is the best way to find the most qualified candidate for this position?
Dr. Lando, how many applicants do we have? Approximately.
There were approximately 10 applications for the position.
Okay. So this position is a hard to fill position across the district. Had the posting remained open for 3 weeks, you may not have gotten many more than the applicants that you have received. Going out in January late is already late. These are positions that are normally posted earlier in January, and we're closing them out in February. Did you have another comment?
This is a position that every district struggles to fill. And part of the reason that they struggle to fill is that the types of, that many of the applicants for these positions are not actually certified and or have no business office experience. That has been my experience, not only in Amityville. The idea of a shorter timeline to post is to try to move more quickly than other districts. And I am genuinely fearful that a delaying of the process, and this is me as your Director of Human Resources, and this is me as experience in my experiences in education. I am genuinely concerned that any delay in trying to move forward with candidates that may have been identified may result in candidates receiving offers from other districts and may even make the pool smaller than it already is.
And when do we hope to fill this position? Starting when?
The position was posted for a July 1st start.
So we have January, we have February, March, April, May.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this one. And
I mean, we can laugh, but I
I'm
don't,
not
I
laughing.
don't know any other position that's been open for less than 2 weeks. And that's a very critical position.
It is a
So
critical
I-
position, and the longer we wait, the less candidates you have to apply. If you try to go out March, April, and May, there are very few applicants who will even be available at that time.
So I actually have similar notes here. I noticed that it was less than 2 weeks. And we had specifically as a board talked about a month at a minimum. And the board also didn't meet before the posting was put up, so we didn't discuss the salary range. And there was a very small salary range that was posted on the job opening. So I would be open, I tend to agree with you, I thought that last summer, although we didn't get any of the backup that I tried to pull a resolution for, that there was seemingly dozens of applicants, and that was in June, I guess, May, June. So I don't know if I'm following the concern with it being January and the position is for July start. So, no, I mean, so you're calling a resolution to go post again for a longer duration?
Yes, I would say 30 days.
All right, so there's been a first and there's been a second.
And also, if I may add, Madam President, the interviewing began yesterday, a day before we even had this meeting. So it's really shuffling along. But go ahead. There's a motion on the table, first and second.
Okay. So would we meet like before the posting
So-
gets posted again so that we can talk about the salary range as well?
I hope so.
So there's a motion that's on the table to extend the time frame for this position where the posting closed out and they started doing the interview process yesterday. So I guess review applicants yesterday. So the question, so this is the motion about extending. So all those in favor of extending, which means that they would stop all the interviews at this point in time. So all those in favor of extending the time frame, putting the posting back up again and extending it for instead of 2 weeks for 30 days.
So
Go
what,
ahead.
what are we looking to discuss this in executive next week to discuss the range and then iron out when the posting would go up?
Yeah.
And then, so say we post it back up next Thursday. It would be up through the middle of March. And then they'd be conducting the search basically from the middle of March. And then how long is the actual vetting process?
I would seek to, on behalf of the superintendent of the board, I would seek to expedite the vetting process. Given that delay, I shared my professional concern and I share it again. Conducting interviews in March gives me great concern as to even some of the candidates that we've already seen as to whether or not they would be available. And that said, I will honor whatever the board asks, and at such time as there is a decision made, I would look to expedite it. My suggestion might be, given that it was posted for 2 weeks, my suggestion might be to, should the board reach a decision on elements of that posting with the superintendent, my suggestion would be to perhaps consider shorter than a full month for that, because that delay, I understand me. I also understand that there are positions that have been posted, and I know that there are other districts. I know that there are other districts that are filling their spots very quickly.
Understood, but also, Dr. Lando, if the terms of the posting would change, for instance, salary, I don't think that can just be a continuation of what was posted already.
I understand it, and perhaps there are things that would be appropriate for conversation in executive session regarding this next week.
Very good. Thank you.
But I do want it duly noted that the board was informed that this posting was coming out and the salary at which it was coming out. There was a conversation and you were informed.
The draft posting was in a Friday transmittal.
The board was informed prior to the posting going out that it would be going out and the salary at which it would be going out. There was an agreement.
That's understood, Dr. Talbert, but going along with past practice, especially hiring an assistant superintendent, traditionally, we do sit down and discuss it. And that hasn't. that
The
did not take-
conversation was had, it was brought to the board's attention. No one had any additional conversation or concerns articulated at that time. So we had the clearance to move forward. Now that we are where we are pulling back on this process. Just understand we're putting ourselves in a position to not have it filled at all.
So I'm going back to what was already, there was a resolution that was read. There was a first by Juan Leon and a second by Megan Messman. So the question is, actually, the first question is really to amend the agenda to add this item. That's what we're doing. So that's the motion to amend the agenda to add it to agenda item 2C2. So add agenda item 2C2, which is the resolution. And I just need the exact wording, Juan, so therefore it's going to be put in. So just read it one more time.
Sure. Well, I have a copy which I will also send to you.
Okay, yeah, just please send
But
it to,
The resolution reads as such. Resolution reopening posting for assistant
slow
superintendent.
down.
Resol-
Go ahead, keep going.
Resolution. Reopen posting. For assistant superintendent of finance.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like me to?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay.
Thank you.
Be it resolved. That the Amityville Board of Education. Directs the superintendent of schools. To reopen the posting. For the position of. Assistant superintendent. Of finance. With a new closing date of. Whatever the board would like.
So we have a first for that amendment.
Well, what is the date that we would like?
Well, if we're gonna finalize it next week on the 11th, then it's not gonna get posted. 13th, it get posted, 12th, it gets posted, so.
So you're talking about, with the closing date of say March 13th, a month later from now?
Yes.
March 13th, 2026. Can I have a first for this amendment to the agenda?
First.
Juan Leon's first,
Second,
Megan Messman is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 So we have Chris, Juan, Megan is yes, just to add it to the agenda. I'm fine for adding to the agenda for right now. LJ. All opposed?
I'm fine with, like, you know.
Adding
you
it,
know,
okay.
Absolutely. Can I ask a
Wait a
question?
second, Carol, are you, do you want to add it or not add it?
We can add it.
Carol Sehol. Yeah, so it's 6 yes to add it to the agenda. So now, any additional discussions on this item?
I'd like to ask Dr. Lando a question. Do you think that, in all honesty, do you think that we're going to lose the 10 candidates, at least that we have now, if you postpone and move on?
There is, extending the search runs the risk of losing candidates that are stronger, and do I think we will lose them? I can't say.
No, I know. Do you feel that the 10 out of the 10, there are strong candidates that, that have applied?
Yes.
Can I ask, out of the 10 candidates, how many are qualified?
Are we able to say that right now? Not really. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I believe that this part of the conversation having to do with personnel is appropriate for executive session.
So, well, I got another question. So based on history, is there a certain time of year where you'll get quality candidates? Based on, how the school year ends and people looking for what they're doing next year?
In my experience, when looking for leadership positions, the earlier in the school year that one searches for any leadership position, the better off one is. That would
So,
apply to this position, it would apply to building leadership positions, it would apply to district leadership positions. The earlier, the better.
okay, so obviously there's no guarantee that we wouldn't get a good candidate if we opened it up, but based on your history, the better pool of candidates is what we just had the application open for.
I'm gonna say that I think that we should discuss this in
Yeah.
executive session
Okay.
because there are elements that it would be better to share in that field than I think inappropriate to share in public setting because
Okay.
it's personnel matter.
I'm sorry, putting a personnel matter aside, just put in general terms, as our HR director, which month tends to be the best month for hire? I'm not talking about anyone in particular.
It's,
Or
So-
it's really any month.
it's leadership positions, it is better to hire early in the year. There is a reason that takes place is that, and it is a reason that in my experience, there are things that are structured in contracts where administrators tend to give their retirement notices, et cetera, typically sometime in January to be able to post and conduct searches early in the year. Teaching positions tend to be more active in March and April as students are moving through and graduating from college when you're looking for that robust pool of teachers. And again, the earlier that one knows of, for instance, retirements from any particular pool of candidates, the better, the broader the field one has to choose from. And then there's also the luck of the draw with regard to who happens to be looking at a particular point in time when or something. However, the position in question is one in which, in my experience, for every school district, there is an extreme shortage of qualified candidates.
So now can I have a motion for agenda item 2C2?
Motion to approve.
Juan Leon is first,
Second.
Megan Messman is second. So all those in favor of agenda item 2C2, which is a resolution that has been read.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And then have one. Heard Carol, was it Carol?
Yes.
Megan? Leslie? Chris?
No. Chris,
Hold on,
I'm joking. I'm joking. Come on.
And I'm gonna go with the no as well. So we have two no's. It passes 5-0, 5-2.
No, 4-2.
Don't even pass, sorry about that, 4-2. Passes 4-2.
I'm sorry, who was the other no?
Me.
Oh, got it.
Yep.
And Madam President, I do have one more resolution for the board's consideration,
Hold on one second, I need a piece of paper.
and I promise this is it.
Okay, go ahead.
Motion to amend the agenda to add 3A2, which is a resolution I'm sorry, 2C3. Resolution for appointment of superintendent search firm.
Let me bring it to add.
You would like me to read it in its entirety, I can.
For superintendent search warrants? So you have a copy that you can,
I do, and
Okay.
I made physical copies. I left them in my printer, but I will send these over. So the resolution reads. Resolution appointment of superintendent search firm, whereas on January 4th, 2025, the Amityville Board of Education passed a resolution stating the board does not intend.
January 4th or June?
June 4th. It's been 8 months.
No, I know, but what you said January.
Let's restart.
Yeah, that's what I'm just saying.
Whereas on June 4th, 2025, the Amityville Board of Education passed a resolution stating that the board does not intend on extending our current superintendent's contract past the date of June 30th, 2026. Be it resolved that the Amityville Board of Education directs its legal counsel to draft an RFP for the purpose of soliciting the services of a superintendent search firm.
We have, Juan Leon was the first.
Second.
Megan Messer is the second. All those in favor of amending the agenda to add this resolution?
Aye.
Aye.
That's Megan Messman and Juan Leon. All those opposed to adding this resolution?
Opposed.
Opposed.
Carol Sehol, Chris Naring, Leslie Fritz, Lisa Johnson, motion fails 2-4.
That's all I have, Madam President.
Thank you. Any other, new or old business? Any new or old business?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So this is the middle school first floor bathrooms. I believe in the Friday transmittal, there was, you've included the cost estimate for the first floor bathrooms of like $200,000. And there was also an understanding that there was likely enough allowance in the existing contract. So if that's the case, I guess I would ask that the board, that on the next meeting agenda, that we have a resolution for the board to consider adding and authorizing that work. Oh, sorry. Okay, so that's one. And then we've talked about the senior class trip a little bit. Is that resolved? Is the senior class trip booked and there's no issue with whether or not we need to authorize anything at the board level?
Got a question.
That's a question.
Okay.
Is the senior class trip booked and like set and everything?
You want to give us the update on where we are?
The senior class is still working on a trip. They have not booked anything yet. There were no buses available for their desired location, Kalahari. They are looking for a different location.
Okay, so, but there's nothing that's needed at the board level, right?
Not at this point.
Will there be?
Once their plans are solidified, then they will communicate their needs, but they have not as of this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other new or old business?
One thing, we were talking about the summer program. Did you look into the scope program? Okay.
And Stephen should have a preliminary update for us. He's been in conversation with scope representatives.
I have been talking to the scope representatives. We've also been talking about some of the programs that we might be able to run. So it would be able to provide options for families if we're able to.
But basically, the families would have to pay it. It would be
They would.
thank you.
Any other?
Yes, Madam President. So I was contacted today, I'm sure other board members were too, about an issue that we may be having with regards to retired teachers receiving their Medicaid reimbursement check in a timely manner. And some
Medicare.
Medicare in a timely manner. From what I'm hearing, there's a bunch of red tape that individuals have to come, cut through to get this. And I'm also looking for confirmation. One, are we aware of this? But also two, if we are sending out paper checks to them in this quarterly benefit, is it possible to send direct deposits? Dr. Talbert?
So the Medicare checks, it's been a longstanding issue, and our district has more of a regular mailing out than other districts that we are aware of. So we're talking about duration, time, and perhaps some reconsiderations. But to answer your question, is direct deposit an option? I'm not sure. I'd have to yield to Mr. Snyder.
The answer is no,
Why wouldn't it be?
Expand on
because they're vendor, they actually get processed like a vendor. It's not a payroll related item, and we don't do wire transfers for vendor except for debt payment.
And so is this matter is being looked at and being addressed then? Yeah.
We're talking about a posted calendar to give to the retirees so that they know the deadline for us to cut and process the checks. And we're also talking about doing it twice a year rather than 4 times, which is more normal and less burdensome. But at a minimum, I'm trying to get some agreement with the staff about a calendar to commit for the 4 check a year process, and then
You mean for the 2 check a year?
for the 4.
Well,
If we were to go to a 2 check thing, I want to roll that out slowly. and
just speak
give-
more to the mic.
If we're going to move to a 2 check a year system, I want to communicate that effectively with the retirees so that they can budget accordingly.
Right.
So to me, I see us sticking to a 4 check system realistically through next December. Have the proper communication to say we're going to 2 checks and give them the deadlines for when they're manned.
Just to get a better understanding, because I don't know. Do we pay anyone via direct deposit, or is it all paper hard copy checks?
For the specific issue?
Salaries are direct deposit.
Yeah, there's still some people that like their paper payroll
right, that's
checks, but
understandable.
most of the employees are on direct deposit.
It's an option. Okay, so
But the vendors are not, with the exception of debt service payments. They require wire transfers for these Wall Street firms. But other than that, there's very little wires going out for vendor related payments, which is what we said.
okay, I guess keep us posted.
Juan, can I ask you, mentioned red tape? What kind of red tape?
Well, if you want to open discussion up more, I mean, all right, red tape. Checks not going out on time because we don't have an accurate address, or someone in the business office doesn't want a request by email, but wants it by certified mail. That kind of red tape. If there's any way to kind of streamline that, because retirees in any profession are counting on this money and in a timely fashion. So is there any way to cut through some of that red tape and try to streamline this so that they can get their money that they've earned in a timely fashion?
I don't know if I'd agree if it's red tape, but I know that there are requirements from audit and from federal government and from state that you need to see original documents on this one. So we typically would take a scan of an original. I'd have to check that, but we're not going to take photocopies or incomplete documents. That didn't happen in this case. All of the checks to all the retirees were mailed out. I think some of them maybe just jumped the gun a little bit and were a little impatient, but I agree that they need to know when these checks are being mailed out, because for some of them it's important for budgeting. And that's why moving to 2 checks, I just want to be careful with that with them, because they likely won't like it.
I mean, they might, and it's certainly easy for us.
It is, I've never encountered 4 times a year. That doesn't mean other districts don't do it, but it is burdensome. Okay.
Any other new or old business? at this point in time. I'm going to go to community input on non-board agenda items only.
Stephanie, is on?
Yes, it is.
Oh, I think if I can't hear it. Stephanie, what is that? I actually have a few questions. Some of them should be pretty short. Also, Mr. Schneider has mentioned, he made a comment specifically, workers' comp is always a problem. Could you explain what you mean by that briefly?
Go ahead. Tiffany.
It's volatile. You just never know who's gonna go out, how much the expense is gonna be. It's a difficult code to budget for. Because if you look at the history of it, it's up
Well,
and
the
down.
workers' comp is based on a schedule, federal, what they can get. So you telling me that,
Workers'
we
comp is
have-
based on injuries.
right, but it's the money they're given is based on a schedule. And are you telling me we have an exorbitant amount of people that are being injured on the job from year to year? I mean, I'm not saying nobody would get injured, but I would find it odd or should be investigated if we're having numerous people, one year, another year, we're not. It's kind of odd to you, but okay.
I don't think that's all.
As far as the search reposting, it's my
For me?
understanding.
Yes, no, I think it's coming to us.
Fine,
It's just-
you gave your
it's
answer. I
just-
said it had to be brief.
It's coming to the board. Go ahead.
It had to be broad. It had to be brief. So as my understanding, as far as the search firm, there was a search done about, I don't know, 8 months ago for the similar position that was just recently posted. And I don't know how many candidates applied back then. Clearly, when it's a one position and you get numerous candidates, doesn't mean everybody else was not good. One person was your choice. Were those people contacted and requested if they're still interested, they should reapply? Because that would be a normal process in any business at that level of a position, because they might be under the impression that they didn't qualify at all. Now, that's not necessarily true. Just because you didn't get picked doesn't mean you weren't good.
So what I would say is that for the last search that was conducted, it was a
It was
previous.
about 8 months ago.
It was a previous HR person, so I'm not too sure if Mr. Landell has that, Dr. Landell.
Well,
has
you
that.
would have that on file.
Right,
All
that's
the
what
people.
No, what I'm saying is that I'm not too sure if he has it in the forefront of his mind, so. he
Oh,
had-
no, I don't.
Okay,
I don't
so he
expect him
has
to
the
have the
question, so
answer.
we can.
But
we can-
he would know for this search if anybody was contacted before.
Okay, do you know, I don't know from the last search, do you know if anyone was contacted from the last search for the position assistant?
There was not a direct outreach from my office to people from a previous search.
Okay,
In this particular case. And I will discuss that recommendation with the board and with the superintendent as we move forward.
okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Also, I know you just spoke about 4 times a year that you're paying that Medicare reimbursement to employees who are retired. There is no requirement that it be done 4 times a year. Now, if it's automated and electronic, I guess it doesn't matter, but if it requires man hours, I would think the district would want to go down to one, since Suffolk County only does it once a year. And in addition to that, are we requiring as a district that the retiree fills out a form that they attest to the fact that they're still eligible to receive that and are not getting that reimbursement from any other source? Do we do that yearly or at all?
I'm gonna have to refer over to Mr. Snyder.
The answer is they do have to attest that they're not receiving these reimbursements from
And there's
some
a
other source.
documented form that is
It's
signed by
documented.
them.
I'm not aware if it's twice a year or once a year,
Well,
but it
once
is.
a year, I think is, yeah, I'm talking
Yeah.
about the form where they have to swear to they
have
they
to
are
attest.
not entitled.
I've seen the form. Yeah, I'm not aware of the frequency.
And they provide, okay, that's fine. Let's see. I believe that's it for now. No, that's it. Thank you.
I think Mr. Snyder wanted just to add something to the workers' comp.
Ma'am, I just, for the board, I've never said that workers' comp is exorbitant. In fact, for $120 million budget and the size of the staff, the expenditure ranges anywhere from 3 to 600,000. Makes it a difficult target to budget. When it's 300,000, it's great. When it's 600,000, it hits its budget mark because that's typically where we budgeted, but that's not exorbitant for $120 million budget.
I think part of the question was that also, do we have a lot of people within the district
Right.
who are injured, or the injuries, are they going up? And that's why that amount may be going up, or is it sort of a steady
It
pace?
is variable. The injuries go up one month, then they come off of workers' comp and it drops the next month. It's not a ratable like expenditure where you could say, well, this individual is injured and is receiving X amount of dollars this month and he's going to get it next month, because they're constantly going for medical reviews. It is the very definition of a variable expenditure, and it has ranged between 300 to 600,000 over the past 5 years.
Okay.
We budgeted at the 600,000 and hope that it comes in lower, but even at 600,000, I would never say that's an exorbitant expenditure given the size of the district.
Thank you.
I don't think I ever tried to ever imply it was exorbitant. I was referring to the number of workers' comp cases. In any industry, there's an average amount that happens. Of course, there's a once in a while spike, but that would be a red flag for a district to look into. Why all of a sudden we're getting a big case of injuries? Is there something that needs to be fixed? And are we investigating them, or we're just sending it over to NYSER to pay it?
I hear you. Thank you.
Hi again. Wendy Canestra. Workers' compensation, when there's claims, they give a reserve, so you're aware of what the reserves are? Okay, so we know that. We know what the reserves are. It's not an unknown cost. A couple of things. Ironically,
That's not what a reserve is, man. A reserve is an estimate of what it would cost to settle all workers' comp claims as of a certain date. It's not a measure of what the expense is. every
it's a
month.
reserve to measure what the claim will come in. Thank you. I'm an insurance broker. I know that. Juan, thank you for mentioning June 4th. Ironically, those are the only minutes that aren't on the website. Where are the minutes to June 4th? Kind of like the video disappeared from that last meeting too. So board members, you have no minutes for June 4th. You have no central administrator emails. You have no board emails. You have no FOIL information in no form. You have no DASA information for parents, and you have no DASA form. You do have it under teachers, but not under parents. Problematic? A way to control information not getting to you, maybe? Mr. Snyder, would be helpful if you brought a laptop meeting after meeting. You can't seem to answer questions from the board. As far as the learning gap grant went, I thought it was interesting, 59 appointments. And you said it's to help with learning gaps. I see a lot of them are Saturday, great. Some of them are after school, but it is by contract that we have to provide after school learning, extra help. Wouldn't that be in there? Why would we be paying out of a grant if we have extra help that's contractual? I'll just keep going. Nobody wants.
So you're asking, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm asking.
Just kind of pause it for 1 second.
Yeah, because I
Just
just want to say, a bunch of my seconds just went away.
Yeah, so your question that's being posed is
Is-
if there's extra help that's already being provided, why is the recov needed for after school?
Ms. Stevens can elaborate. The Recovs is a grant that was awarded to the district for the purpose of learning loss, addressing learning loss. And so there are specific purposes for which it can be used.
No, no, I understand that. It's not that I don't understand it, but they already get extra help that's contractual. Why are we using that grant money for those after school days during the week? Use it for something else. Maybe there's something else you could use it for. It's a double, we're already getting that service.
Go ahead.
So the extra help doesn't take place every day. And it is only for the 1 hour period after school. So this allows us to do extended work with students. We can run full programs that target their specific needs.
But how is it different from extra help?
So extra help is offered, they're like office hours where students can come and get help on assignments as opposed to a targeted program.
Okay, that's a first. I swore I heard the assistant superintendent of business talk about, you know, you have to worry about, you definitely want a surplus, because then if there's a deficit, you'd have to cut programs and things. I have to say that there's a lot of red flags here, and I hope that the board is paying attention. First of all, the whole budget process is backwards. The board should be meeting to talk about what your priorities are for next year, and that drives the budget. What is contractual, what is operational, and then what is it that you want to see in a budget? So I haven't witnessed those conversations. That would be an open session. You guys should be paying attention to this. So you should be starting that. The superintendent should be presenting you with a balanced budget day one, and then you work backwards. You're seeing a screenshot of revenues without seeing a screenshot of expenditures. You're all in the dark. All of you are in the dark. You're asking questions about expenditures, but they'll give it to you next week, but it's not side to side. You know, when I've been doing Board of Ed stuff for more than 30 years. I have never in my life heard a business official say there is no way to control overtime. Overtime can be viewed as a perk for, you know, for some line items to get extra money. It should be a red flag. I think that you passed it, that resolution is going to go on to extend the business official. Is that right? Okay, that's great news, because you aren't even through this budget season, and so far the presentations are not great. And oh, the one-shot deal. We keep talking about the money to the taxpayers is like going to compound year after year. Like I was in a district that gave 0%. I don't know what kind of garbage answers these are, but they are. And I just hope that you pay attention. You know, probably contractually, you're probably at like 83, 84%, you know, with operations, and then you have this little leeway, but you're working blindly, and it's up to you to rein this in. They work for you, not the other way around. And you're so reliant on them, even saying, I'm fearful we won't get anybody. Like, honest to God, let's get a grip here. We had plenty of applicants. Yes, there might be a shortage. People are going to apply. They need a job. And if you need the leadership positions filled sooner, you should be filling the superintendent position. We voted on June. Oh, you're going to cut me off right when I say this?
No. What I'm saying to you, I've given you an additional minute
Okay.
of your time. So I'm just making, if there's no one else that's coming up, then you can come back and finish. But I'm just saying, I gave you an additional minute of your time. Can I just say something? She said that the June 4th minutes are not on it is. The June 4th minutes are on the website. Okay, go ahead.
Barbershop Amityville.
Hold on one second. You have to reset the timer. Okay.
Two basic things. I can't stress enough how concerning it is when the budget finance official says, I always budget up so that we get a surplus. So the goal is to be realistic. We've already experienced a ridiculous slashing of the budgets that made this 10.6 million budget surplus as it is. You killed overtime, which is your biggest mistake possible. You think you were doing something good, but it's like, yeah, we're going to cut overtime. We're going to get the timesheets. We're going to have controls. we're gonna get the timesheet signed, you know, this, that, the other thing. And the overtime is a nightmare, evidently, because the line item is way out of bounds. You totally slashed it ridiculously beyond compare. So nobody's thinking. Everyone thinks they're doing a great thing, like slashing heads, slashing budgets. So you slash the crap out of it, and then all of a sudden you have 10.6 million. That's not a good thing. That's pathetic. That means that nobody's thinking outside the box. Nobody's doing the homework. Nobody's foreseeing anything. I just don't understand how you can think that having a 10.6 budget, a surplus, is a good thing. It's really not. It's smoke and mirrors, thinking you did something good. It's not good. It should be closer to the belt, to the budget, and everything else. And when the business official says that he proposes budgets above so that there's a surplus, how much surplus can you want? And I'm really going to be hard pressed, and I'll do my homework and check at these 28% surpluses when the state recommends it should be at 4%. I don't buy that for a second. Long story short. Then the other thing is, you just tried to get a resolution passed on the RFP for a search firm. June 4th was when this was all recognized that nobody wants to go forward with the superintendent. God bless you. But anyway, it's now, it's February. The resolution came before you. You decide not to go with it. What the hell are you waiting for?
Some of that is personnel and some of it is personal.
But I asked the question last time at the podium and I said, has an RFP gone
So
out?
like,
You said
like I
no.
said, right. So as soon as we're able to do it, we'll do it.
Well, I don't know what you're waiting for because it's a detriment. It's a detriment. It speaks volumes that you're sitting on your hands doing absolutely nothing. You're not moving this district forward. You're just making it stagnant. You're not thinking outside the box. And we see it week and month after month. The stats aren't going up. Things aren't being done. Overtime's a disaster. The budget is a disaster. It's time to reel it all in. It's time to think about what you're doing and get it done.
Thank you.
Starting at the top would be a big help.
Thank you. Any other community input on non-agenda items?
Madam President, just to,
But is there any other community input on non-agenda items? Any other community input on non-agenda items?
Hi, Margot Howard, Vice President of the Amityville Teachers Association. Two things very quickly. One is not a question. I just wanted to thank the district for applying for the Reclubs grant and for finding creative ways to provide Regents Review and additional support to our students. I've taught Regents Review for years, and there's a huge difference in scores. The data speaks for itself. When we have those opportunities, it goes beyond extra help, and our students do benefit from extended time, and they're definitely struggling with reading longer texts and writing, especially with these new formats of the exam. So we really appreciate that opportunity. We've been asking for Regents Review for years. I'm sorry we've been so annoying about it, but I'm so glad that you found a creative way to make that work. My other question is there any way that, in addition to all the calculations you're making, is there any way that we would be able to see what reserve funds look like in other districts, what their percentage of reserve funds would be in districts that have had 0% increase? I'm a taxpayer too. I think the 0% increase would be fantastic, but is there any way to see how many districts are doing that and exactly what their reserve funds look like so we can get a better idea? I don't expect an answer on that now, but it's just something I'm
I don't know if
thinking about.
Dr. Talbot, you or anyone else. Go ahead, if someone to, yeah.
I think ASBO has data that way of reserve, that certainly exists, but whether or not they have had a history of going out with zeros or less than what the tax cap permits, I don't know. I'd have to look at that. But certainly we've displayed here on the screen all Long Island districts and their fund balance and reserves as a percentage of the budget. And the controller's office puts it in their fiscal stress workbooks for each district, but I'm not sure about those districts that go out with zeros and ultimately what their percentages are. I'd have to look at that.
Hi again. Freeport goes out with,
Hold on one second. Okay. Go ahead.
Freeport goes out with zeros year after year after year. I would just recommend you look at Freeport. Just to get back to this, June 4th, there's a resolution not to extend the superintendent. Unfortunately, my experience coming to these meetings is decisions are based on emotions and not facts. The facts provide that we need different leadership. Not passing. Well, what was the resolution? The resolution is you didn't agree to put on the resolution for superintendent search firm, or was it that you just said no to the superintendent search firm? Which was it?
It was no to, I think, it was
So-
RFP.
It was the
The mi- So
development
you-
of an RFP.
So you declined to do an RFP for a superintendent search firm. I hope everybody listening out there, because we have thousands and thousands of listeners, realize that 4 trustees, Johnson, Kretz, Seehoff, and Nearing, voted no to a superintendent search firm, which can only assume that they're going to be reversing the superintendent, which is a detriment to the students, to the taxpayers, and the staff. It was under Dr. Talbot that we were taxed when we had a surplus. That there were dozens of teachers cut, that special education was cut, that services had pulled, due process wasn't followed, and the 4 of you, I don't know what you're doing. You're up for reelection. I'm so excited for this election that there is a chance to flip this board because you're not representing taxpayers and you're not representing kids. And you're so used to Amityville and have no other experience that you're complacent with underperforming. You're complacent with toxicity. If you have different leadership and a great administration and a strong board that's fiscally intelligent, there is the world is your oyster. You could do anything. The kids will have so much, but instead you're stagnant. Oh, by the way, I did see on the website that one of the board members' kids was highlighted. Oh, interesting.
Thank you. Any other community input on non-agenda items?
Good evening, Nikhil Wolf, President, Amityville Teachers Association. So I don't know exactly where it is that I want to start with this, but I can definitely start from a place of frustration. I can start from a place of frustration mainly because we hear a lot of information about facts, but then the facts are actually not articulated. So if we really want to get some things clear, I do believe that a decision should have been made by now. That is something that I am strongly in favor of, irrespective to whatever direction it is that you were going to. There should have been something that's been done. I think we are waiting way too long to make the final determination on where we are moving forward as a district. But let's go back to what the actual facts were. The facts were that when I've never seen a superintendent welcome the way that this superintendent was welcomed into this school district. I have never seen a superintendent that has been welcomed into a school district that already had a deficit that was charged with trying to figure it out with not being welcomed into the school by segments of the community. And I think it's very important to acknowledge that it's segments of the community, not all of the community. And everybody is entitled to their opinion, irrespective to whether it is that you agree with it or not. A deficit, contracts that were not settled, achievement scores that needed to be raised and to be lifted. It's interesting to me that
none of this came up during predecessors that were here before, when there were constant years of poor achievement, but I guess there's different requirements for different people. Nonetheless, absolutely different requirements for different people. Nonetheless, I find it also interesting that when we keep on talking about this deficit, there are people who were currently sitting on this board, some who have taken accountability for what transpired during that time, and others who still have not, as if they weren't there. What are we actually doing? Are we going to be making a decision where it is that we're moving the board forward, moving the district forward, or are we still going back to these ticky-tacking back and forth about people trying to use either authority or gain authority through use of power? I think that what you probably should do, if you're so concerned about whether or not your community supports you or not, is get out there and find out. Find out from your community whether or not they believe that this is the superintendent that can move the district forward. Find out from your staff whether or not you believe that's the case. As a board, you have the ability to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other community input on non-agenda items?
Madam President, can I ask the speaker a question?
Can we, this is the time for community input on non-agenda items, so I need to leave it for the community to have the opportunity to speak at this point in time. Okay?
That's fine. I'll make a comment at the end.
Yeah, at the end. Thank you.
I would just like to dispel the previous speaker regarding not having any accountability to any previous administrations. That is completely false. I stood here at the same podium. Speaking of Dr. Fail, which was a big fail, and that administration. So it was very much voiced, and it has been for years. And the thing about having it for years is that nothing changes. So nothing changes with my complaint about Dr. Fail, and nothing is, and I'm still going to complain because nothing has changed.
Thank you. Any other community input on non-agenda items? All right. So go ahead, Ms. Leon. Just at this point in time, community input is now closed. So there's no more community input. Ms. Leon, if you want to say something right quick.
Yes, just 3 quick points. Number one, the June 4th minutes are in fact uploaded. They were uploaded, so I'm not sure if that was a mistake by a previous speaker.
All right, so just keep going, Ms.
That's
Leon.
Yeah, I'm not stopping.
Yeah, go ahead. Keep
Number
going.
number two, it sounded like there was some confusion on what exactly my motion was. To make sure that's very, very clear, the motion that I called for regarding the superintendent search, which failed for 2-4. The request was for the Board of Education to give direction to our legal counsel to draft the RFP. So for the board's consideration, so that we can look at it. And if we are going to go in that direction, we are ready. So it wasn't saying, yes, we're starting the search today or tomorrow. It was the preparation. So that's number two. And then number three, with regards to Mr. Wolf and his statement, I know you said if you are encouraging us to go out to our community and staff and the teachers, you are representing the teachers union tonight. Is that correct? Or are you?
So just go ahead and make your statement to that. Go ahead.
Would you like to share the sentiment of the teachers?
He's saying, go ahead.
Would you like to share the
So
sentiment of the teachers?
At this point in time, community input is closed. So does the board want to hear his response? Does the board want to hear his response to Mr. Vice President Leon's question? What are the sentiments of the teacher?
I don't think this is supposed to be a back and forth at this
Yeah,
point,
it's
right?
The Board of Education can ask any question of any speaker that comes before them.
I just asked the Board of Education if they would like to hear a response to your question from Mr. Wolf.
Okay, so who?
So I'm just asking
I
the Board of
understand.
Education.
Who's saying no? I want to know.
Let me finish. I'm asking the Board of Education, would you like to hear a response to the question that Mr. Wolf has presented? So I have no problem hearing response to the question that First President Leon stated to Mr. Wolf in terms of what are the sentiments of the teachers within the district. I have no problem hearing the response. So if he wants to speak on it, yes, I'm fine.
Sure.
Yeah, bring it up.
The Teachers Association would like the following for the school district to move forward with bringing somebody in or keeping individuals who fit the qualifications for moving our district forward. That is anybody who is capable of moving us from one position to the other. I think that the board needs to identify and figure out what it thinks is successful and what it thinks is not. I don't know what your barometer of success is because it doesn't seem to align with progress or improvement. I don't know what you call going from a deficit to not going into a deficit. I don't know what you call making any type of improvement in academic, whether that's successful or not successful. We don't know what it is that the board is looking for as a community. What I do know that the ATA is looking for is that at some point in time, we would love to have stability. At some point in time, we would love to see a plan actually be seen through from beginning to end. We would like to see that a board is standing behind someone if they are making progress as opposed to anything personal. Now, as how that applies to this, we've been here forever. So we've been here for the last couple of years. So you could see that for yourself. So speaking from the ATA, that's what it is that we are looking for. And we look towards leadership to provide role models of such. You guys have constituents and you can decide to either go with them if their viewpoint aligns with yours, or you could decide to do something different. That is your decision. Everyone has their opinion based off of whether they are on the outside or the inside. But you have to make a determination as to what is successful to you, and what is making a decision that is not based off of those factors. So that's what we are looking for.
Understood. That's a very different second tone than the first time.
No, it's not.
Yes, sir.
How was it
So
different?
when, ladies, I
well-
mean,
well, the
let's,
first-
let's not go,
well-
let's not go back and forth. So go ahead and make your statement and then let's just.
Sure,
move
well,
along. So
sure. Well, the first,
people coming to the mic.
thank you.
Oh, by
Well-
the way, I presented facts, not
Not
an
everything you
endorsement.
said, sir, was factual. Not everything you said was factual. And I know that because I was here.
This is not. an
Okay,
attack
so
on Faith, Gary.
gentlemen, so Mr.
Thank you.
Leon got, he's talked to, so.
That's right. We can
and-
talk on the
and-
side.
Yeah. Any other thing from the board? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting at 10:45?
Second.
Leslie Kretz is first, Juan Leon is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.